Okay, for contrast, I've constructed factor 3.5 and factor 0.7 graphs, and a brief explanation of that, longer explanation in the accompanying video, but if you get this, you don't really need that. Okay, so we start with the same initial point here in orange, but now we use a factor of 3.5 instead of a factor of 3. Now, had we used a factor of 3, we would have been here. 3.5 is a little higher than that. Then we increase this by factor, or change this by factor 3.5, so it goes up somewhat higher than the factor 3 graph would have, and with every point it goes up higher by an increasing percent for reasons that you might understand, but whether you do or not, if you do this, you begin to see what's going on. And then we just match up points. I match up the first point, which is the same as the original, with the same point on the x-axis. And then I match up the next point in the x-axis here, getting a point about here. And this point will match up with this, giving us this point, and we get this curve. Another point would be way up here, so we're kind of approaching a point that's up here somewhere. And this isn't really well constructed. You can do this much more accurately if you're looking straight at the paper and if you do it carefully. Okay, and then we do the 0.7 factor 0.7 graph. Now here I started up here, match this point with this one, giving us a point here on the graph. Then the points here, this point, if this distance is 100, this distance should be about 70. If this distance is 100, then this should be about 70. If this is 100, this should be about 70. And if this is 100, this should be about 70. In other words, each one of these is 0.7 times as far from the origin as the preceding. And we're starting here. So this one matches up with our first point. And I chose this x value rather than this one because there's not a big contrast to make here. There's a direct comparison to be made between these graphs. We see that this one curves more rapidly than this one, and because of the factor 3.5 instead of factor 3, it should be clear why. But here we don't really see a close relationship. So I match this point with this one with this one, this one with this one, this one with this one, and didn't do a really good job of that. You can improve on it, but you see we get a decreasing function. Now this is still curving upward, that is, the curvature points that way, just like the curvature here points that way and the curvature here points this way, and that's generally in the upward direction. So we still say they're curving upward, or they have an upward concavity, but this graph is decreasing, whereas these graphs are increasing.